dim it? Sure.
Probably read it easier.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so this one right here. What do you like? No. Better? Yeah, that's good.
Let me know when you're live so I can start. Assalamu alaikum. For those joining us in person and live, I am very honored and pleased to have Dr. Ataie joining us today. I will read his bio off of Zaytuna College website. Dr. Ataie is a scholar of biblical hermeneutics with the field specialties of sacred languages, comparative theology, and comparative literature. At Zaytuna College, Dr. Ataie has taught Arabic, creedal theology, comparative theology, sciences of the Quran, introduction to the Quran, and seminal ancient texts. He received his BS in accounting from Cal Poly State University in 2000. In 2011, he received his MA in biblical studies from Pacific School of Religion. And in 2016, he received his PhD in cultural and historical studies in religion from the Graduate Theological Union. Dr. Ataie's PhD thesis titled Authenticating the Johamian Injil, Muslim Parliamentaric Interpretive Approaches of the Gospel of John, is a faith-based hermeneutics of the Gospel of John in which the entire text is authenticated as being the true Gospel of Jesus, Jesus Christ mentioned in the Quran. Dr. Ataie is native Persian speaker. He could read and write Arabic, Hebrew, and Greek. Dr. Ataie joined Zaytuna College faculty in 2012. And again, Jazakallah khair for being with us, and I'll go ahead and hand the mic to you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good to see all of you, mashallah. Thank you for having me here at Zaytech Academy. Thank you, Brother Khalid, Brother Mansour. I've actually known these brothers for decades, but I haven't seen them in a long time, but mashallah, I see them here and there. Alhamdulillah, good to be here. I have a slideshow. It's a bit long. It's already after Isha, so I don't know if I'll get to the whole thing, but I do want to give you some highlights. So this is a lecture. It's called An Apology of Muslim Christology, and I'll explain what that means. Defending the Quranic Jesus alayhi salam in light of revelation and reason. So there's something called apologetics, right? Apologetics. And what is apologetics? So basically, let me see if I can, mashallah. You guys see that? Yep. So here it is. In short, Muslim apologetics refers to a rational defense of Islam, okay? The word apologetics comes from Greek, right? From apologia, means to explain something away. Right, to explain something or to defend something. So it's not in the sense that we're apologizing for being Muslim. That's not what it means. Sometimes Muslims do that. I apologize for this verse in the Quran. I apologize for this hadith. That's not what we're doing. Here we're defending the faith, a rational defense of the faith. Its genus is argumentation, and its difference is what's known as raddu shubuhat. Right? Raddu shubuhat means to basically refute these issues, these pseudo-verities. A pseudo-verity is something that seems to be true, but is actually false. Shabaha in Arabic means to resemble something, right? وَلَكِنْ شُبِّيَ لَهُمْ, it says in the Quran about the crucifixion, right? It resembles, what does it resemble? The haqq. It resembles the truth, but it's not really the truth. It's a pseudo-truth or pseudo-verity. In other words, you might have a Christian apologist, a Christian polemicist, an atheist, something like that. He'll say something about Islam that sounds a bit convincing. He might even quote something and quote a scholar or something like that. And you think, oh, this must be true, right? So in short, apologetics is this type of rational defense of the religion. And here I have a subject sequence, right? Creedal theology, this is something that we should all study, right? The aqidah, we should have our aqidah, right? We should know our religion, And then kalam theology. This is kind of discursive theology. Sometimes it's translated discursive theology, speculative theology sometimes. This is getting into sort of, the more specifics of theology, the problem of evil, who is God, things like that, prophetology. And then comparative, right? So everyone, I think, should have a little bit of knowledge of different religions, especially Christianity and Judaism, right? And then, of course, apologetics. So this is an example of how knowledge of sacred languages can be a means by which we might refute a pseudo-verity, a shubha. Okay? So for example, this is something that Christian polemicists will bring up all the time. So in the Quran, we're told that, remember when the angels proclaimed, "O Mary, Allah gives you good news of a word from Him." Right? وَإِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُبَشِّرُكِ بِكَلِمَةٍ مِّنْهُ. A kalima from Him, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Now the Gospel of John, the fourth Gospel of the New Testament, there's this very famous verse, "In the beginning was the Word," the Logos, I'm circling the word, this is the Greek Logos, right? "And the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Right? So you might think, well, therefore, the Quran is calling Jesus God. You might think this is a very bad argument, but this is something that Christian polemicists bring up all the time about the Quran, that the Quran is actually teaching the deity of Isa alayhi salam. A'udhu billah. Because the Gospel of John calls him the Word, and the Word was God. And the Quran calls him a word from Him. Okay? So, this is my contention, actually. What the Quran is doing is the Quran is continuing this established Jewish miracle birth literary tradition, right? It's not confirming this kind of Hellenistic concept. Hellenistic means Greek concept, right? So in Middle Platonism, for example, you have this idea of the one sort of main God called the One, who sort of is thinking about his own thoughts, and this self-reflection causes this involuntary spillage of light or being, which creates another divine being who's called the Son of God. So Christians, they're heavily influenced by this type of Platonism. The Quran has nothing to do with that. So in what way is the Quran using the word when referring to Isa alayhi salam? So we go into the book of Genesis. This is in the Torah. This is Sarah speaking to the angels. "Shall I bear a child and I am old?" We have the story in the Quran, right? أَأَلِدُ وَأَنَا عَجُوزٌ. Shall I give birth and I'm ajuz, I'm an old woman. وَهَذَا بَعْلِي شَيْخًا إِنَّ هَذَا شَيْءٌ عَجِيبٌ. And this is my husband and he's an old man, Ibrahim alayhi salam. This is a very strange thing. The response in the Torah is anything too hard for the Lord? That's a translation. But the original Hebrew here, you see this word in here in red? That says davar. And that word means kalima. Is any word, davar or kalima, too hard for the Lord? Okay. And the meaning of that is anything that God decrees, any affair that God wills, too hard for Him to do. Okay? And so word, within a Jewish context, that is to say a Semitic or Israelite or biblical context, means edict, affair, matter, or decree. Okay, which is very interesting. Gesenius, this is one of the most famous Hebrew lexicons that's used in the academy. It says that davar can also mean amr in Arabic. These are equivalent terms. And look at the response of the angels in the Quran. أَتَعْجَبِينَ مِنْ أَمْرِ اللَّهِ. Right? Are you astonished by Allah's decree? Okay, so now we look here. This is the verse where the angels are saying to Mary, إِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُبَشِّرُكِ بِكَلِمَةٍ مِّنْهُ. Right? So, the contention here, my contention is, the Quran is using this word kalima in the same way that the Bible is using the word davar in the context of miracle births. Right? That's the proper context. Another question to answer is, how would Maryam alayhi salam have understood this? So Maryam alayhi salam, being a Jewish woman in the temple precincts, the angels come to her and say, God is giving you glad tidings of a kalima. So how would she have understood that? Would she have understood that I'm going to give birth to God? She would never have understood that, because she's in a certain context. She's in a Jewish context, a monotheistic context, right? She knew the Torah, she knew the Jewish tradition, so she would have understood it as something like God has decreed some weighty affair, some important matter for her. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay, so when we engage in this type of intertextual linguistic analysis of the birth stories in the Quran and Torah, it becomes perfectly clear how the Quran is using the word kalima with respect to Jesus, not in this kind of Greek henotheistic. Henotheistic means there's many, many gods, but there's one main God at the top. That's a Greek idea. This is shirk. This is not a Muslim idea. It's not a Jewish idea. Okay? But in a contextually proper monotheistic Jewish sense. So a word of God means some special thing that God decreed. Now, the word kalima in the Gospel of Luke, right, is used in this way, in this Semitic sense. Because here we have the angels speaking to Zechariah alayhi salam, according to the Gospel of Luke. And the response of Zechariah is the response of the angels to